Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. The U.S. announced a 30-day waiver allowing sanctioned Russian oil exports to be purchased by certain countries, even as Brent crude surged past $100 a barrel, reflecting heightened tension from Iran's continued closure of the Strait of Hormuz and attacks on Gulf shipping. Now, global energy markets are grappling with supply disruptions and strategic uncertainty. There's also been a first message from Iran's new leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, though he himself didn't appear in audio nor video form. We'll discuss all of this now with Scott Lucas, Professor of American Studies at University College Dublin. Good to have you with us, Scott. Let's jump right into it. This waiver, 30 days, lots of oil, potentially very much a good thing for Russia here. What do you make of this, and how much will this really help the current oil situation, and how much will it help Russia?
Oh, it's going to be a big boost for Russia at a time when it is struggling in the fifth year of that full-scale invasion of Ukraine. In January and February, Russian government oil revenues were down 47% from the same period a year ago. They had almost been halved. The U.S. sanctions imposed in November on Russia's largest oil companies, Rosneft, Gazprom, and on their customers, were having a huge effect. India had almost shut off its purchases of Russian oil, and that's Moscow's second largest customer. Now what does the Trump administration do? Because of the mess they've gotten themselves into with the U.S.-Israel war in Iran, they release that pressure point. They say, okay, it's only going to be for 30 days. It's only on Russian vessels that are currently at sea with oil supplies. But of course, 30 days can be extended, especially, as you note, if we have elevated oil prices that go on through the spring. Fact of the matter here is that the Trump folks have gotten themselves into trouble with no plan B on how to take down the Iranian regime. They therefore have to face these rising global oil prices they have caused. And who are they willing to sacrifice for this? Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this is just also coming through the numbers now. I checked these. This is 9:30 Central Eastern European time on Friday. Now, WTI was hovering around oil $96, $97 a barrel, and Brent at about $101. So even if we have now this waiver announcement, it may take some time. But nevertheless, it seems that the impact and also this release of maybe more oil, is it really going to be enough to stabilize the market, or do you see this cruising up more north in terms of prices?
No, it's not going to stabilize the market if this war continues, because Iran has choked off the Straits of Hormuz. So, that's 20 million barrels of oil a day, I think, that move through the Straits. It's about 25% of the world's maritime oil supply. So, yes, the Russians have got hundreds of thousands of barrels that they would like to, to sell, that they would like to offload in various places. But if you've choked off that vital trade route, it means the overall global oil supply is going to be constricted. So, as you mentioned this morning, after the American announcement, the Brent price did break that $100 almost symbolic, level that it first crossed on Monday. Will it go as high as it did on Monday, $118? Maybe not in the next few days, but I think it will do in coming weeks, unless you reopen the Strait of Hormuz and unless Iran's retaliation, which has closed or limited several oil refineries in the Gulf, unless that is stopped.
Mm-hmm. And also, let's talk a bit more about the Strait of Hormuz. And we were always saying that that's really, really close proximity for the ships to actually get through. They're saying something like 30 kilometers, but actually the lane itself, the sea lane, is even more narrow than that because of the turn involved. I think it's something like maybe even no more than 8 kilometers wide. Gets really close to Iran. Now, Trump has said that he would potentially protect those lanes. I think yesterday, a new quote of his saying that he's telling oil tanker crews to, quote, show some guts. So, but when push comes to shove, do you see American naval escorts or maybe other naval escorts? Is that the next step here?
Never rely on Donald Trump's statements for your headline. Let's go to the facts. It's been revealed today in 2 U.S. sources. It's been revealed in the CNN and the New York Times from U.S. officials who have spoken to them that the Trump administration did not plan for the closure of the Straits of Hormuz. That's almost unthinkable. Almost every analyst worth their salt, in terms of an energy analyst, a geopolitical analyst, a maritime analyst, knows that if the Iranian regime was in trouble, their counter was not only to retaliate with attacks across the Gulf, it was to close these straits. Yet the Trump folks didn't plan for it, probably because they thought this would be a very quick victory. On February 28th, when they killed the supreme leader and dozens of Iranian officials and commanders, they thought that's it, the regime's going to collapse. It didn't. So now you have this sea lane. And go back to, I'm old enough to remember the 1980s, when during the Iran-Iraq war, we had this threat to the Strait of Hormuz from both sides. The U.S. put in military escorts to escort shipping. And I remember what happened. First of all, a U.S. warship got hit by the Iraqis, killing 37 crewmen. And then an Iranian passenger jet was shot down by a USS warship that panicked, killing almost 300 people. So yes, you can try to now organize an international escort for these ships through the Straits of Hormuz, but you're doing it way too late, and you're doing it when the risk is now way elevated above where it was. Other countries are going to be very wary of this. The Trump administration has not shown effective planning here, and it is not going to be simply an easy mission to go in and now say we will reopen the strait.
Mm-hmm. And also, let's look at some other developing stories. And we have this statement from Khamenei, the new apparent spiritual leader of Iran. Now, no one's actually seen him at this point. That statement was just released. One, what do we make of the statement, first of all? And two, any credence to the fact that he wasn't on video or audio form? What does that tell us?
I mean, again, the best information we have, if you accept this, it comes from the son of the president, President Sascha, who revealed that Mojtaba was injured in that February 28th attack that killed his father, the previous supreme leader, his mother, his wife, and others. Had a fractured foot, had facial lacerations. Now, is he really in a state to be issuing the statements? Look, even if it's not Mojtaba that wrote this, even if it is someone else amongst the Iranian leadership, what matters is the content here. And the content makes very clear a few things that we have already discussed. The regime is not going to surrender. The regime is not going to enter talks with the Americans unless there's a ceasefire. The regime is even saying, we're going to win this. Now, I don't believe that, but it shows that the regime is still being defiant here. And on top of that statement that you got today, the regime has issued a warning again to Iranians, which is if you come out on the streets thinking that you will replace us, we will cut you down, just like they cut them down, killing thousands, maybe tens of thousands in January. So, okay, look, Mojtaba, no Mojtaba, doesn't matter. There are still religious leaders, political leaders, and military leaders who are not going to surrender and who are willing to make this an uncontained war.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at the moment as well, I want to just start with, or rather go back to our start. We mentioned as well with this oil waiver, that does benefit Russia. Right now, the Europeans in particular are very much caught between a rock and a hard place. They still need to supply Ukraine. They're not quite sure what to do with Iran either. Let's look at that as well. Zooming into Poland for a second, another big decision that just came out Thursday is that the Polish president is going to be vetoing these safe loans, these defense loans, about 45 billion euros. I mean, this is key stuff to develop over 139 projects. In this kind of setting where we are now, what do you make of that veto? What does that, I mean, looking at it from the outside, from Europe, what does that say about, let's say, where it's going?
It says that you have not got just one Europe at a time of crisis, that you have differences of opinion across Europe. We have seen this at the EU level with Vladimir Putin's ally, Viktor Orban, blocking that 90 billion euro loan to Kyiv to finance its needs through 2027, trying to block the 20th set of EU sanctions. And we are seeing some countries where there's differences of opinion, including in Poland, on how far you go to support Ukraine. I don't want to intervene in Polish internal domestic politics. You folks know that better than I do. But what I would say here is that given that there's likely a difference of opinion between the president and between the government, there needs to be an issue which gets back to the fundamental. And that is, are you willing to continue to defend Ukrainian security at a time when it still faces the Russian attempt to conquer it after more than 4 years of the full-scale invasion? Or are you going to curb Ukraine's ability to defend itself simply because the Americans have made a mess of the world in another area such as the Middle East?
All right, so big questions there to answer. Look, always a pleasure speaking to you. Scott Lucas there, really much thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary.